So what do you think the weirdest mechanic in Pokemon is? For me, I'd say it's probably the Dongle method. If you don't know what that is, basically in Pokemon Diamond, Pearl and Platinum, you can insert a Game Boy Advance game into the bottom of your DS, and you'll get different encounters on specific routes. These encounters can range from insanely powerful to just kind of rubbish, but I wanted to see if it was possible to beat a hardcore Nuzlocke of Pokemon Platinum using only these types of encounters. I think it will be possible, especially since we have such an amazing encounter that you'll see later on. But enough said, let's get on with the challenge. I start off by picking Chimchar and fight our rival and beating him with no issue. Then I head to the Professor and get Pokeballs, meaning the run has officially started. On Route 201 I catch a Growlithe, at Lake Acuity I catch a Lunatone, and Route 204 I catch a Caterpie. I get the team to level 10 so Caterpie can evolve twice, and I take on our rival with our first official team. One rock throw takes Starly out, and a critical hit Confusion knocks out Piplup. Then on Route 203 I catch a Lotad and head to Auberg City, meaning I can get everyone to level 14 and take on the first gym. Lombre Okos the Geodude with an Absorb, 2 hits take out Onix and he just sets up a Stealth Rock, and Cranidos brings us down to 14 health before getting KO'd with 3 Absorbs, earning us the Coal Badge. Heading to Floaroma Town we fight Team Galactic to get the Windworks key where I can fight Mars. It starts off really well with one-shotting Zubat, but then Purugly comes out. I tried to put it to sleep with Hypnosis, but of course it misses twice, and I decide to swap to Growlithe to get an Intimidate off and then switch to Butterfree to put it to sleep with Sleep Powder. I then bring Growlithe back in to use Leer and chip at it with Bite until a critical hit Scratch takes Growlithe down for the first death of this run. Luckily I got it low enough so Lombre can come in and kill it with an Absorb, but losing a potential Arcanine with Intimidate this early just sucks. Let me just say, I never lose any Pokemon to Mars. Normally you get like Geodude or Onix, but in this Nuzlocke the only thing we could get was Lunatone, which was weak to Feint Attack, so I'm just really pissed off. In Eterna Forest we can get one of the best Pokemon for this run, Pineco. You might be wondering, how is Pineco going to be the best team member? Well, it all comes down to entry hazards. Once we evolve it, we can have Spikes from Level Up, Stealth Rock from Rorke's TM, and Toxic Spikes through the Move Reminder. With all of these hazards, we can do a total of 37.5% of their max health, as well as badly poisoning them, as soon as they switch in. We can also get Protect to rack up toxic damage, or Rest if we get really low on health. Overall, I think this Pokemon will become one of the best choices to start a fight with, but let's just hope it lasts that long. After guiding Cheryl through the forest, I make it to Eterna City, home of the second gym. And since I've lost Growlithe, this fight could be a bit difficult. She starts with a Turtwig, but I use Butterfree to put it to sleep and knock it out with a Gust. The same happens with Cherrim, Sleep Powder and Gust take it down no problem. And finally is Roserade. We put it to sleep like the others, but Gust only does around a third of its health. But after a few hits and a heal, we finally take Roserade down, earning us the Forest Badge. After the gym, I head over to Route 211 to catch a Teddiursa, and in the old chateau I get a Gengar who is possibly one of the best encounters in the run. It has access to Thunderbolt, Dark Pulse, Shadow Ball, Psychic, the list just goes on. Just slap some choice specs on it and it becomes a sweeping machine. In the Galactic building, I take on Jupiter and I'm really not looking forward to this fight. Her Skuntank is only weak to ground moves, so surprise surprise, without a Geodude or Onix, it's really difficult. She starts with Zubat and I go for Lunatone. Since it has Giga Drain, we need to make sure we take it out in one hit, and luckily a Rock Throw does just that. Second is Skuntank, and I'm not risking putting it to sleep like Purugly, so I swap to Pineco and use a Bug Bite to eat its berry and do an insane amount of damage. We die to a second Night Slash, so I bring in Butterfree to use Sleep Powder and then back to Lunatone to chip at it with Rock Throw. And this turns out to be a stupid idea because Rock Throw does basically no damage and we get crit and taken out with a Night Slash for the second death of the challenge. It's low enough so Gengar can take it out with a Nightshade, but it just pissed me off to lose a second Pokemon to Team Galactic. I make it to Hearthome City where the next gym leader uses Ghost types, but luckily on Route 206 I catch a Gligar and in Wayward Cave I get a Sandshrew. I take on Fantina with an interesting strat, Teddiursa. 2 Feint Attacks take her Duskull down as it uses Future Sight. Second is Haunter, but we Leer to drop its defense and to stall out Sucker Punches as we get confused and put to sleep. When we wake up, we fight through the confusion and one-shot Haunter, meaning next up is Mismagius. I bring in Butterfree to Sleep Powder and swap to Pineco to eat its berry, and then I bring in Gligar. A feint attack does around 50% of its health, but I get hit with a Confuse Ray and a Shadow Ball, meaning one more hit plus bad Confuse luck will take us down. So I bring in Teddiursa, who is immune to the Shadow Ball, and secure the victory in one more feint attack, earning us the Relic Badge. After Fantina, we have a fight with our rival, and his Staravia loves to use Double Team and Endeavour. Luckily, using Curse and Confuse Ray on Gengar lets us take him down in a few turns. He brings in Ponyta, so I send in Sandslash to get some damage on him, and with 4 hits he gets taken out. Third is Prinplup, and I pivot with Pineco to get Butterfree in to put him to sleep with Sleep Powder. Psybeam only chips away at his health, but with enough sleep turns I manage to get the KO. And then last is Roselia, but a Psybeam takes him out, meaning we're on to the next route. Nothing eventful really happens until we get to Veilstone, where I add the newest member of our team, Vulpix. I then get everyone to the level cap, evolving Teddiursa, Pineco and Gligar, as well as teaching him Aerial Ace and Earthquake. I also give Pineco Toxic Spikes from the Move to Impostoria, and then with all that minimum prep time, we take on the 4th gym. Meditite goes down after 1 Aerial Ace from Gliscor after I set up Spikes and Rocks with Fortress. Machoke is a bit tankier, so 2 Aerial Aces are used before he goes down, but Lucario is KO'd with 1 Earthquake, earning us the Cobble Badge. Whilst leveling up for the next gym, Gliscor learns Swords Dance, meaning he's almost at his full potential, being the best sweeper of our team. I have to fight Barry before taking on Wake, but like before, Curse with Gengar to start off the match, and then I bring in Fortress to set up Rocks. Ponyta is next, so I bring in Vulpix to absorb the fire move, and I then use Ursaring to slash it to death. The same goes for Prinplup, a Bubble Beam does weak damage, and then 2 slashes take it down no problem. And finally is Roselia, so I bring in Gengar to resist the grass moves, but somehow the little man holding flowers survives a Shadow Ball. Luckily it misses the Leech Seed, but one more attack wins us the fight. Before Wake, we head back to the Solaceon ruins to pick up a new evolution stone and evolve Lombre into his final form, Ludicolo. And now we're taking on Wake. He starts out with a Gyarados, so I use Fortress to set up 1 Stealth Rocks, 1 Toxic Spikes and 3 layers of Spikes. I then swap to Ludicolo and start attacking. Grass Knot does just over half damage and Bite only does a small amount. We then outspeed for the KO on his first Pokemon. Second is his ace Floatzel, who bar a crit or a freeze on Ice Fang can't really do a lot of damage. A Crunch procs our Citrus Berry, but as 1 Grass Knot takes him down, he sends in his final Pokemon, Quagsire. We all know how this is going to go. 4-time super effective grass move OHKOs him, earning us our 5th gym badge, the Fen Badge. Leaving the gym, we hear an explosion, so we chase down a Team Galactic grunt to try and get some information. After stopping him, we run into Cynthia, who tells us to head to Celestic Town, and on the way we catch a Seedot. He won't be too useful, but we could maybe have a small niche for him later on. But in Celestic Town, I evolve Vulpix into Ninetales and head into the ruins where I'm stopped by Cyrus. His team early on is never difficult, so we can handle him easily with Ninetales and Gliscor, but for the fight in the Distortion world, we will need some planning. The old woman gives us an HM for Surf, so we can head over to Carnalave City to take on our next gym. Luckily, Fortress is in the front of my party, so I can set up hazards as his Staraptor only goes for double teams and weak aerial aces. So once we finish setting up, I can bring in Gliscor and use a few aerial aces of our own. Second is his Empoleon, but since our attack is so high, we take it out with no issue using Earthquake. Next is Roserade, but being slower than you expected, we take him out with another one-shot. Rapidash does outspeed us, but hits us with a really weak takedown, meaning, you guessed it, another Earthquake does the job. Finally is his Heracross, and just to be safe, I U-turn out into Ninetales to guarantee the one-shot with Flamethrower. With Barry down, we can take on the 6th gym, and it goes just as well as you can expect when we have a fast, strong ground type who knows Earthquake. Byron starts with Magneton, who can only use a weak flash cannon, but unfortunately it doesn't get the option to hit us as it uses Metal Sound, so I'm free to set up a Swords Dance and spam Earthquakes. Magneton was free, but Steelix barely survives, and with an attack stat weaker than Mothum, weaker than Stantler, we easily survive an Ice Fang and take it out the next turn. And since Bastiodon is 4 times weak to ground, we easily one-shot it for possibly the easiest gym fight of the entire run, earning us the Mine Badge. We've got 2 fights with Galactic leaders now, but Ursaring, Gliscor, Ninetales and Ludicolo easily handle Saturn and Mars. Until the Distortion world, there really aren't any fights that are too difficult, but next up we have the Ice Gym. Next up is the Ice Gym, and we have to make our way through the snow. And this is the one thing I hate about Platinum. Everything in Platinum is so good, but making your way through snow just sucks. I hate that you can't run, I hate that you can't see, and I hate that you have to find rock climb in a random patch of snow. But we make it to Snow Point and we take on Candace. You can imagine how this goes. I have a Ninetales to take down almost all of her Pokemon, but Frostlass manages to take us down to 10 HP. Let me just say, Snowcloak is a bitch. Luckily, Ursaring comes in to clean it up with a crit feint attack, getting us our 7th gym badge, the Icicle badge. Apparently now we have to backtrack all the way to Veilstone City to take on Cyrus, but honestly, it was easy. He only has 3 Pokemon, so setting up Stealth Rocks on Fortress and swapping to Ninetales lets us take down his Sneasel, and a Swords Dance with Gliscor lets us take down his Crobat and Honchkrow. And now I have to take on Saturn to free the Lake Trio. 3 Aerial Aces take out his Golbat, a Flamethrower takes down his Bronzor, and finally Gliscor can come back in with an Earthquake for the win, freeing the weird elf things. But it means we can move on. We have 2 more fights until the next gym, 1 against the Galactic Commanders and 1 with Cyrus in the Distortion World. The only issue here is that we have to use an HM Slave to get to Spear Pillar, meaning we're going in on a teammate down. I decided to start with Fortress like always to set up hazards before swapping into Ninetales to hit Bronzor with a super effective Flamethrower. 2 take it down and Mars brings in her Prugly. But since it's decently bulky and a light screen is up, our Flamethrower does almost no damage. I swap it into Ludicolo to take it down with Surf, and Mars brings in her last Pokemon. Ice Beam does the trick, taking it out in 2 hits, meaning we only have to focus on Jupiter. I bring in Gliscor to nail her with a super effective Earthquake that does less damage than I would have expected, but we high roll on our next hit, taking her down, which just leaves Golbat. Luckily 2 hits take it down, meaning we can go into the Distortion World and take on Team Galactic's leader once and for all. Cyrus's Distortion World team is insane, so we need to play this perfectly if we don't want to lose anyone. He starts with Houndoom, so I use Earthquake on Gliscor to get an early Oko. Second is Weavile, so I swap to Ninetales and hit it with a Flamethrower, just missing out on the KO before he eats a Citrus Berry. He then swaps to Gyarados for some reason, so Flamethrower does little damage, but I decide to bring in Fortress to set up hazards for Weavile and his birds, and then Ludicolo can come in to finish it off with a few Giga Drains. That's what I would want to say, but he swaps to another Pokemon again, and I have no idea why. If anyone knows, please comment, because I'm really confused. But he brings in Crobat, so our move does almost no damage regardless of a crit, and Crobat only goes for Toxic, so Ice Beam does enough to take him out, but now we're on a timer. Honchkrow is sent in, and Drill Peck does a huge chunk of our damage, and if we didn't have a Citrus Berry, Ludicolo would just be dead. Luckily, we eat our berry and retaliate with an Ice Beam, getting the kill, meaning Weavile comes back in but gets poisoned and hit with rocks. Unfortunately, he gets so low Cyrus has to go for a full restore, negating all the damage I've done, and then his Night Slash takes us down to 13 HP. But a Flamethrower manages to burn him, taking Weavile out in 1 turn, meaning Gyarados is back in. Gyarados is brought into the red from rocks, so Gengar can come back in to tank a Waterfall and finish this deathless with a Shadow Ball. With this massive hurdle out of the way, I head to Sunyshore City to take on the final gym leader. And yeah, I catch a weird dog or something, but anyway, on to the next city. I go up to the lighthouse to convince the gym leader to do his job, and apparently all it takes is a mute 10-year-old to do that. So I chase him back to the gym to sweep his team with our favourite boy. He starts with Jolteon, who can only hit us with an Iron Tail, so we have a chance to set up Swords Dance and then press Earthquake. Next is Luxray, but we outspeed and another Earthquake takes it down. Third is Electivire, but we outspeed him too, and you guessed it, an Earthquake gets the Oko. And finally is his Raichu, so 1 more EQ takes him out, beating Volkner and earning us the Beacon Badge. Victory Road was really simple since there are only a few mandatory trainers, but we make it to the Pokemon League with no issue. We get stopped by Barry as we're about to walk into the Elite Four for one final battle. He starts with his Staraptor like always, and I go for the MVP, Gliscor. A Hypercutter prevents Staraptor's Intimidate from going off, so I use a few of our Swords Dances to get us up to +4, and an Aerial Ace takes down the big bird. Second is Empoleon, but a speedy Earthquake easily gets the one-shot. Next is Rapidash, but you already know what happens, and fourth is Roserade, and an Aerial Ace kills it with no issue. He then sends in Snorlax, who I thought had a chance of surviving a hit, but he just goes down as easy as the rest. And finally is Heracross, but with a +4, 4x super effective aerial ace, it completely obliterates him, defeating Barry with one Pokemon. Elite 4 time, and first off is Aaron, but I just know some of you are going to hate me for this. He starts off with Yanmega, so I use Gliscor. We get 2 Swords Dances off as he uses Double Team twice. He then flinches us with an Air Slash, but luckily our next aerial ace connects for the one shot. Second is Drapion, who isn't a bug type might I add, but this actually is beneficial for us because one super effective Earthquake takes him down and brings in Scizor. He's only weak to fire moves, but luckily we're at +4, so an Earthquake knocks him out in one move. Next up is Heracross, but like Barry, an aerial ace obliterates him, so Vespiquen is sent out next. But like any other bug, if it doesn't outspeed, it doesn't get to live, so one more attack kills, beating Aaron with only one Gliscor. Our next opponent is Bertha, so we can finally use another Pokemon that isn't Gliscor. She sends in Whiscash, so I send out Ludicolo. 4x super effective Grass Knot takes it out for an early lead in this fight. Second is her Ace Rhyperior, but we have Surf to handle it. And next is her Hippowdon, but with Sandstream she gets to boost all of her team's special defense for 5 turns. I press Surf hoping for the best, and we actually manage to get the one shot, so she brings in her Golem, who also dies to Surf. Which means her last Pokemon is Gliscor, who outspeeds and does a pitiful amount of damage with an Earthquake, but then gets taken down with one Ice Beam. And thinking about it, maybe the special defense boost wasn't added until like Gen 5 or 6, but anyway, that was just cruel to Bertha. No time to dwell on it as we've got Flint next, and I think you already know what's going to happen, so I'll just let it play out. Whilst this is playing, I just want to say that I had no idea how good a fast flying and ground type would be, but just look at Gliscor. Like genuinely, I'm really impressed with this, and it doesn't actually matter if its defense is low because we can just Swords Dance. And then even if we're in trouble, we can just U-turn out. I honestly can't see a downside to this Pokemon. Use Gliscor. Just use a Gliscor. And with Flint done, we can finally move on to Lucian. But I mean, you won't believe it, but we're not using Gliscor. Instead, we're going to use Gengar holding the choice specs that we got in Celestic Town. Since Gengar is so fast, we're going to be able to outspeed anything because we have the level advantage. And then with the choice specs, we're going to do insane damage. So here we go into the fight. He starts with a Mr. Mime and I bring in Gengar. Before he can set up Light Screen, I lock Gengar into Shadow Ball to get the knockout. Second is Espeon, but he goes down to one more hit thanks to the choice specs. Up next is Alakazam, but we're 3 levels higher, so we can outspeed for our third Oko. He brings in Bronzor, but since Steel is so OP in Gen 4, we can't take it out in one hit, so Lucian heals, but obviously we outspeed, so 2 more Shadow Balls can send it to the grave as he brings in Gallade. Since we outspeed, we take Lucian down without Gengar losing a single HP point, as we move on to the champion of Sinnoh, Cynthia. She starts with Spiritomb, and I use Fortress to set up hazards. First, Toxic Spikes, second is Rocks, and third is 3 layers of Spikes, before Dongle's time has come and he's taken down by a Psychic. I bring in the powerhouse of the cell, Gliscor, to set up a Swords Dance and take Spiritomb down with an Earthquake, and Cynthia brings in Milotic. Knowing I can't survive a Surf and probably can't take it down this turn, I U-turn into Ludicolo to use a Giga Drain. Unfortunately, the poison takes Cynthia to heal range, meaning we can't kill this turn, but Giga Drain still does an insane chunk of damage. She then decides to swap out Milotic into Roserade, so another Giga Drain does almost nothing. But next turn, an Ice Beam takes it down and is way more than enough for the one shot. Cynthia then brings in Togekiss, but I know that Togekiss will outspeed Ludicolo, so I swapped it. Oh, never mind, I'm an idiot. Ludicolo goes down, and I send in Gengar for the kill with Thunderbolt. Milotic is back in, but after another full restore, Thunderbolt takes it to a Slither before a second one brings it down. Then I have Lucario, and I pivot to Zangoose to take it out. Full disclosure, I don't even know why I brought Zangoose. I think it might just have been for fodder, but anyway. After he goes down, I send Gliscor in to land an Earthquake for the Oko, and that means her Garchomp is out last. The only thing I can really do here is go for an Earthquake and hope another member can pick off the kill, but she manages to miss Dragon Rush, giving us a fighting chance. The hazard damage mixed with 2 Earthquakes take it down to the red, but Cynthia has 1 full restore left, meaning she gets back to full HP. The only thing I can do here is keep clicking Earthquake and hope I can take it out in 2 more hits, but we bring it down to the red, and this is surely where Gliscor dies. There is no way we can survive a Dragon Rush from this range, but we survive with 3 HP, meaning we can go for 1 more Earthquake, taking Cynthia down and becoming the new champion, and beating this challenge on our first attempt. Okay, that was a really fun challenge. I haven't made a video in ages. I've been busy with university and I've not really been recording stuff. I've tried, but I've not really been successfully recording stuff. So I really wanted to just thank everyone for the last video because, I mean, I made it like 2 years ago, but people are still watching it and it really means a lot. And hopefully I can get some more videos out. I've really enjoyed making this and editing this. The audio isn't great. I've been having a few issues, but I think I've fixed that now. But yeah, if you've enjoyed this video, please let me know. Please tell me in the comments. Please give me any suggestions because I'd really appreciate it. I'd really like to know what other people want to see. Thank you if you enjoyed the video. Tell me why you didn't if you didn't like the video, but that's all from me, and I'll see you in the next one, I guess.